But right now I'm gonna read this little piece around Jamy. And the reason I'm gonna read it rather than say my own words is I really love the words that are here. So Jamy is a passionate way shower, committed to radically redefining family dynamics. She creates judgment-free space to allow women to clear their own ancestral patterns, reparent their inner child, and become the point of change that gets passed forward for generations to come. She is also the founder of the new parenting paradigm. She is a visionary and she is a 6'2" sage. So I'm going to welcome Jamy. I'm going to put you onto speaker view so that they can all see you. Oh, hang on. And I'm going to highlight you so that we go, where are we? Spotlight. There we are. There she is. Welcome, Jamy. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. I'm going to mute myself and allow you to chat with the women. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I am Jamy Schumacher, as Zapheria so beautifully introduced me. First of all, I do want to just begin by expressing my deep gratitude for being invited to be a part of this space and to get to participate in holding a new group of women through the experience of the womb journey, the womb spiral, however you end up interacting with this particular temple space. Today, I know the other women, a lot of the other women are bringing some really beautiful processes and experiences. And so today I wanted to start just with a reframe that I think is really important for us as women, as change makers, as lovers in the world. And this reframe is around power and what it looks like in the world, and how beautifully it can create transformation when we actually allow it to be integrated and led by love. So I want to start with a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that has really resonated with me since actually going through this journey of the womb spiral and really connecting deeper into my own power. And the quote is, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love." And that really resonated with me as I began to tap deeper into the conditioning that I held around what it meant to be in my power. And I started to think about, why is that? Why do so many women, and particularly women in this, in this field of healing and of compassion and love and change in the world? And the conclusion that I came to is that up until this point, the model or the example that we have seen of power is very connected to power structures and hierarchy and control, very strong and masculine in nature. And what I believe we are here to do is to redefine the way that power moves in the world, to begin to utilize what we are built with, the innate strength within us to bring more love to the planet. But in order to do that, we have to start looking at why we're afraid of our own power, and why we kind of want to push it away and not actually fully stand in it. So I was looking online not that long ago, actually, and I was looking up synonyms for power. And a vast majority of them were quite negative, were about forcefulness, about dominance, about, fury and destructiveness. And it was very jarring and interesting, actually, for me to see kind of the collective perspective of what power is. And the reframe that I would love to start to consider is when we consider power our driving force, our commitment to showing up in love, to being willing to honor our truth, to stand in our sovereignty, and to model what it means to care about other people, to hold compassion. So instead of this forcefulness, can it be vitality? Can it be influence? Can it be potency and the capacity to show up, to create change, to love when maybe it feels difficult to love? Um, my own journey to this has been, I grew up in a religious household, and through a lot of my childhood, there was a lot of teaching and a lot of conditioning around being humble. And I learned indirectly and, mostly unconsciously that there was a way that it was appropriate for me to show up. So I started to connect my sovereignty and my truth and my power to being mean, to being harmful towards others, or that it meant taking, that it meant, that it meant that it was, if I was in my power, then it was negative for someone else. And of course, in my desire to bring more beauty to the world, I didn't want to hurt anybody in that. And so I retracted and I edited and I minimized my power. Um, and quite honestly, a large part of what brought that back online was my journey through the womb spiral and learning what it meant to be deeply grounded in my own body, to know what is true for me, and to give me access to a new level of courage, to be steadfast and to show up even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when maybe it's uncomfortable to challenge someone. And of course, that being my experience and my story, so many of the clients that come through, to do the womb spiral or whatever work with me have very similar conditioning, as I would presume. Maybe it's quite rampant in most of us, I would say. And here's the thing is that most of these women, most of you women, have a deep desire to create massive change on this planet. And I think there's this realization that we have to come to, is that it would be very difficult to penetrate the world and to bring that change through if we are not willing to tap into our power. And so in order to reframe that, we start to look at not trying to replicate or trying to be like what we've seen power in the past, to let go of any hierarchy that might look like, and to bring that through in compassion for each other, in connection to what it is that we desire to see more of on the planet, to embody love. The ego is oftentimes where this power is rooted or is connected to or starts. This I part of us that has our own desires, but also has our own dreams and our own purpose to fulfill in the world. And so when we can start to, instead of resisting or pushing away or wanting to quote unquote kill the ego, what if we can start to bring that into a healthy relationship, to honor this part of us that does have an I, that does have a desire to create change in the world, but not keeping it in that I place, and actually like bringing it up through the heart. Imagine these warriors and these people who have desire and passion and excitement to create change in the world, not just for me and my needs, but brought up through the heart and up connected into love and that fire and that resilience and that drive actually starts to get directed towards creating change for the greater one, the greater us, the collective, if you will. Um, I really do feel like that is part of our charge, at least me personally. I guess I will take ownership of this, is that it is a part of my charge to help people to reframe what power looks like in the world. And when we can start to see power that is married with compassion, that is connected to love, that has the whole in its sights and in its consideration, um, we can start to unravel and let go of the old paradigm. It was interesting just today, because my thing is parenting. And just today, I talked about changing that relationship with our parents. I posted something about not forcing our kids or, trying to force what we think is best onto our kids. And I think that that's a very important thing for us to consider. This hierarchical power structure. I'm in charge. I know what's best, and I want to make you do that. And when we can actually start to empower each other, to respect the sovereignty of each other, that includes parents to children, that includes child to my parents, that includes me as an adult to my own inner child. When we start to respect the sovereignty of each other and actually empower each other in our actions, we start to see people that aren't fighting for power, but that are innately connected to their power. And they aren't resisting and having to fight against what that definition might mean. But it's very interesting because on that post, I had a woman disagree, very enthusiastically disagree that parents are in charge and children are not, and that we are here to guide them and they're not here to guide us. And it was very interesting to feel the energy of this: I'm in charge and they are not. And so another point that brought up for me was awareness that power and control are not necessarily directly connected to guidance. I think that we learn very early on that control and rules and structure are what keep us safe. And so if we love someone, we want to keep them safe. And it justifies our imposition on other people. And when we can really start to look at why we feel uncomfortable with people making choices that feel good for them, where do we feel unsafe in our own bodies? Where do we want to control the things around us, and harness power in a way that imposes or limits other people's freedom around us? We can start to journey with what we're trying to rescue ourselves from or what we're trying to protect ourselves from. So my offer is in this consideration that love and power can coexist. In fact, they need to, in order for us to create the change that we want to on this planet. I see so many people in our community in particular in this space of compassionate, heart-led people, very afraid of their power, very resistant to their power, and cannot feel that it can coexist with love. And I see a lot of people in their power, and in this I don't know how to, like, force field, or this fortress of power, in order to keep themselves safe, and they don't understand how love can be a part of that, because love might weaken those boundaries or their authority or their power. And so the reframe and the request is to start looking at what love would look like if it has power behind it, if there is the life force of power behind what you love and the way that you love in this world, how much further can your work go? How many more people can you support and help and guide? And and if you are in your power and you are disconnected from love, how can you bring more compassion and more softness into the barrier that um, may or may not actually keep you safe? I think that this awareness that this all starts with our own sovereignty, with our own ability to hold ourselves, with our own ability to feel our power, to touch our power, and to decondition what it is in us that's afraid of it. Beyond the the religious dogma and the experiences that we have and the way that we're taught to show up in our power, I think a lot of human beings in general. I work primarily with women, so I feel like this is a very prominent thing in the field of women as well, that we are afraid to tap into our power because we can feel the immensity of it. I can't tell you how many clients and women I've worked with that actually say they're afraid of their power because they're afraid that they will turn into like the destructive force, that like they will just destroy everything in their life if they fully allow themselves to tap into their power. And that's terrifying. That is terrifying. It's as simple as that. I've felt that, and I feel it's safe to assume that probably many of you watching have as well. To bring that into your awareness, that you are at the core of your being, at your soul level, who you are. The nature and the essence of you is innately you. You are not kind and loving because you haven't tapped into your power. It's a misconception that like only I can only do this because I haven't allowed myself to acknowledge that. But the truth is, you are who you are. If you were intending to be destructive, you would do that with or without access to your power. So, this ability to trust the innocence and the goodness of who you are at the core of your being, and have the courage to start to tap into that life force, that deep, grounded power that travels through you innately. Because to be honest, it's there, it's a part of all of us. And what happens when we don't acknowledge it and when we resist it and when we look away from it is that it kind of comes out sideways. It starts to play in the shadows, and we are meek and kind and compassionate, and yet this power can come out in manipulation, or can come out in um, like different ways that we try to control and force in and behind the smile of like meek kindness. And where those things are happening, either in our relationships with our kids, or maybe our partners, our friendships, um, can actually be quite oh, what's the word I'm looking for, like quite revealing. I can't tell you how many times I have had to confront the parts of me that like, no, I'm not doing that at all. And yet over and over again, when I'm not willing to fully own what it is that I desire, when I'm not prepared or willing to fully own my power, it is showing up in ways that I'm unaware. And it's creating, I feel, consequences that if I were willing to just fully own what it is that exists within me, fully own my authority and my power, my ability, my vitality, my effectiveness, that I don't have to apologize for it, and I don't have to manage how it's running in the background. It's like, instead of it hiding, bring it right up in front and interact with it and use it intentionally and use it towards the change that you want to see on this planet, whether that's in parenting, whether that's in women's work, whether it's in womb work, whether it's in, whatever place in your life that you are hiding from your power. I challenge you to start to look at why you're hiding it. And that's as simple as asking the question, why am I afraid of my power? What stories have I created around what power means? And remember that you are the sovereign creator of your reality, of your experience. So if you do not want to be a reflection of the power structures that we've seen in the world, how can you do it differently? How can you show up in love? Because let me tell you, it takes great power to be in a confrontation with someone maybe who is not in their heart, who is closed and maybe combative. And can we utilize that power connected to love to stay open, to stay curious, to meet that person without creating a war, without creating an explosion or a conflict? That's power to me. I correlate it to the ocean. And I think we said this, I did a chat with Zapheria last week or 2 weeks ago, but the force and the power of the ocean is unmatched, and she doesn't attack. She doesn't go after anybody. She gently and continuously moves. And you can't punch her, you can't hurt her, um, you can't disturb her, if you will, because she is fully in her power. And to me, this is what feminine power looks like: the ability to stay connected and grounded to your sovereignty and truth, no matter what's happening around you, and come out of reactivity and into responsiveness to the world around us, to show up in love, to show up in compassion, to challenge the things that are not in alignment with what we know the world can be. Let me think if there's anything else. Are there any questions, Zapheria, or any comments that I can respond to?
So I've just shared it, by the way, everywhere. So now I'm looking at like 5 different pages to see where the comments are.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm looking at all these different places. But rather than look at that, I guess like I have a piece that I would love to ask you is, when it's difficult to fully step into our power and to really own it and claim it, what do you feel are the things that we can start to do? Like, I know for myself, and I also know parts of your journey, that it's not always easy to move through this piece and to step in. And I guess to you, do you feel like it's like one big leap and like, cool, now I'm all in my power? Or do you feel like it's an evolution?
I think it's a lot of those leaps, actually. Continuously over and over again, because everyone feels big. It's like every time we approach the edge of our comfort zone, it feels big, it feels terrifying, it feels exhilarating, it feels overwhelming, like all of these things. And I guess to me, like, that's where this womb work and this womb spiral process supported me so much, is that when it's overwhelming, when everything outside of me is telling me, like my brain and my mind and my ego, to like just like keep your head down, just play it cool, don't rock the boat, I have access to that deeper part of me that's unwavering. I have access to this level of groundedness and strength that I didn't have before, where I was kind of doing it on my own, and I was up in my head. And now it's like I'm fully in my body, roots deeply in the ground, and held and supported by the earth, you know? And so it's like to know that no matter what happens around me, I've got myself and I am solidly safe within my own body. I can retrieve that. I can call on that. I can pull that up to bring in the courage that it takes to take that big leap over and over and over again. So yes, I mean, like it's both. It is one big leap, and it's one big leap over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's I mean, that's been my experiences as well. So I was intrigued to hear like if that's also been your experience. But for me, yeah, it's many big leaps.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, every time you grow, you've got to face a new, you know, a new edge. So it's kind of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're given as big a leap as what we can manage at a time, right? Like if we went from, you know, wherever we were, say even 2 years ago to where we are now without like the little leaps, I think we would all go a little crazy.
Yeah, Zapheria, I think it was like just over 2 years ago that I was sitting in womb spiral with you. So,
Mhm.
you know, like look how much has changed in that amount of time. Something that actually came up in a session not that long ago. Somebody said, "Oh, but that thing feels so big. Like that future that I desire, it feels so big, and it feels bigger than I am, and I don't think I can do it." And the reminder is that the person you are right now looking at that future is not the same version of you that will be taking those steps all that way down the road. So that's why it's so important to stay right here. Like, what am I being called to do right now? What courageous act? How am I being called to show up right now for power? Because we are equipped to make those decisions right now. But if we are thinking so far down the road, we can get overwhelmed because we don't feel prepared. And we aren't actually, because it's the journey of getting to that place that prepares us to stand in that place. And
Yeah.
so always remember to come back to right now. What am I being called to embody right now? Where am I being asked to stand in my power now? And not get too far ahead of yourself, because you will be prepared for that if you continuously lean in to the challenges and to the places where we want to shrink, and lean forward and stretch.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
that just that piece of like stay in the now. I feel like that like for anyone who's listening that's been like, oh, how do I do that? And we just said big leaps. The stay in the now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom in this space with us. Deeply appreciate you and so honored to have you as co-facilitator in the Temple of Armella. Cannot wait to create like 6 months of absolute magic with you
So
coming
yummy. So
through.
yummy. Yes. And, you know, I mean, part of the reason that I chose this topic today, it is a little hard. So I'm a generator. It's a little hard to just talk and talk and talk without someone to like respond to. But the reason that I chose this is because it's actually a pretty major part of my design, is that I innately can activate this power, or a willingness to engage in this power in people that are ready to step into that. You know, and that actually is what flipped me, you know, upside down when I wanted to just be small and meek. And it was like, no, this is part of your purpose on the planet. So I was like, I better get out of my own way and just own that.
Mhm. I'm glad you're owning it. It's definitely one of the transmissions that's ready to come into this temple with the women. So anyone who's
Yeah.
been watching so far and has really resonated with what Jamy shared, you can obviously check out her Facebook. Please do follow her. She shares a lot of beautiful wisdom. I'm also going to share with you shortly, I probably should share it soon, a link to the Temple of Armella so you can start to see what it is that we're all creating. And Jamy also is, like I said at the beginning, a womb spiral practitioner as well. So you could always reach out to her if that's also something that's been calling for you. So thank you so much, Jamy. I adore you. And
Yes, love
I'm
you.
gonna